Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. I call this Back to Back with the Johnson Boys. My special guest is a young brother that I met. Good gracious, he just told me how long we've been doing this thing.
Yep.
But he is the CEO and publisher of BlackMenInAmerica.com. He's a native Washingtonian, a brother that has really not only talked the talk but walked the walk. And if you haven't had a chance to go and check out the blogs on Black Men in America, please do so. I would like to welcome my special guest, a guy that's, like I said, is really doing it, Mr. Gary Johnson. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Legends of Inside Sports.
Always nice to be here.
Well, man, I want to congratulate you, man, on the recent honor, man, of being in the top 10 of black bloggers or websites.
Well, let me break it down, because people will look at this and there's some haters out there.
Yeah. Who you telling?
So I want to be clear, because some people will be out there now going, he ain't this, he ain't that. Haters hate. That's their job.
Yeah.
So I let haters do their job. But let me get the facts. According to Alexa, and that's one of the ranking services for websites, we are in the top 500 of black-oriented websites. And so I think we're number 40. Then they break it down. So then there's a breakdown of online communities for African Americans.
Right.
And we're ranked number 6.
Wow.
Number 1 was BET, and there's some others like Black America Web. And so those sites are out there. We're number 6. One of the things that makes us different is that we're black owned.
Yeah.
100% black owned. Some of the others are owned by mass media conglomerates. So if you go trace their roots, they're not black owned, but they do have a black target audience, and that's how they get ranked.
Right. You know what that reminds me of, Gary?
What's that?
When I first got into radio with my main man, Petey Green.
Yes, sir. I remember that.
At WOL in 1967.
Wow.
WOL was black oriented, but it was white owned.
Wow.
Okay? So now I moved from WOL to WOOK, where the original Inside Sports is born.
Yep.
And guess what? Another station that's black oriented, that target black folks, but is white owned. I leave there and go to WOOK. It's the same thing. So what we're saying today, with people like BET being ranked up there high, Essence, and a lot of those other folks, they are owned by white folks. And man, I gotta take my hat off to you, man, that for you to be ranked that high, and I know it's been a struggle. It has not been easy, but you have a blog site and a website that's first class. It's no doubt about that. Gary, tell us how this idea came about, man, that you decided you wanted to get up a website with Black Men in America.
I was actually flying back home the day of the Million Man March. And we were looking, as we were getting ready to land, I looked out the window and I could see millions of people out there, and I knew it was the day of the Million Man March. And I kept thinking, I had these thoughts for years, and that was 1995, that there's such a misperception and mischaracterization of black men in the media. Not all of us are bad, it just didn't seem to be an equal representation. So I'm like, what about the positive stories? And I said, the internet was just coming into age. I'm like, I could level the playing field and maybe get in early and start putting some stuff out there to just balance the perception or the portrait of black men in America. I didn't know anything about websites, but I said, let me see. There was this thing called Microsoft Front Page, which is, I guess, like website for dummies at the time. I took it, sketched out something over the years, and then in 2001, I decided, you know what? let's put this thing out there. Let's launch it. And I wanted to launch it with interests of positive stories, because the people I grew up and knew in the city and in my household were Black, and they had positive things going on. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to counter the negative, because there's enough knuckleheads and negatives out there, but let's balance it out. It's a question of balance, and that's all I wanted to do. And it took off.
Yeah.
One of the first people I had on there was Mike Ramey.
Uh-huh.
And I had some women writers, because I said, one of the things I know, if the sisters are on to the site, then they'll get the brothers there. Because some of the brothers don't even want to go there.
Right.
So it's worked out. And so 2001, and we've been just the little engine it could every year.
What year did I sit down and have lunch with you out in Landover Mall?
2006.
Yeah, so I came aboard.
You were with Blackonomics, Jim Klingman.
That's right. Uh-huh.
And I don't know if I was with Jenks Morton.
No, you were with his son.
I was with Jenks Morton Jr.
Yeah,
so right. I know. We were in the restaurant.
Wow.
And you guys were coming out, and that's how we met. And I'm like, oh man, Harold Bell. I grew up listening to him.
Wow, man! I tell you, it has been a fantastic ride these past 12 years. I didn't realize I had been there that long, man. But I came aboard right after that.
You are, if we rank the columnists, you are the most visible columnist on the site. You have more entries than anyone. You get more mail than anyone, good, bad, and indifferent, which is good, you know. And, you're the most challenging because you're out there. Mm-hmm. You tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Now, 2 days ago on Friday, I'm out in the community in Ward 8 in D.C. in Southeast. Mm-hmm. And I'm giving a keynote speech to a group of people who, the Jamie Lee Jones Foundation for people who have multiple chronic illnesses. Mm-hmm. So there are people in the audience who have suffered from chronic illnesses and people who have to support their friends and family members. And I'm talking about my son and his challenges. And somehow the name Harold Bell came up. And somebody raised their hand and said, and I'm quoting him, are we talking about the legendary Harold Bell from Washington, D.C.? Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, that's the one. Wow. And he said, man, he used to give me and my father the blues. On the air and off. And that guy is Harry Thomas Jr.
Ain't that something, man?
So you never know. That's the power of the internet.
Yeah.
It's the power of the internet. You never know.
And it makes me so emotional because this guy has returned back to the community after he had these hardships and got caught with his pants down. Yeah. But he's come back.
Well, that's a metaphor with his pants down.
Yeah, right.
You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. I forgot about that. In this day and age, not literally.
No, not literally.
Metaphor.
Yeah. And he has come back to work with young people, man. Isn't that something?
And he brought young people to that function.
Wow.
He brought young people to that function. So he's working with the young people and the youth, and they travel all over with the youth.
Wow.
He brought his wife and his family, his daughters there.
Wow.
So he's making amends for the financial improprieties that he served his time for.
Yeah. Well, Harry, I just want to say, my young brother, I'm proud of you, man. I really am, man. And it really done my heart good to hear about what you're doing now with young people, because we need you, man, because they can learn a lot from you.
My goodness,
you know, they can learn a lot from you. So man, the best of luck in your endeavors. And speaking of Mike Ramey, he just wrote an interesting piece on Black men in America.
He did. He writes a lot of interesting pieces. And he's a columnist that writes from a biblical, spiritual perspective. Mm-hmm. And so he hits hard, and he doesn't care if you hit back. And he wrote a piece on you.
Yeah. I thought it was an outstanding piece because it was during Black History Month, and it was a piece on my relationship with Muhammad
Ali.
Yeah. And he did a great job, man, because a lot of people don't want to recognize that history.
Right.
You know, they don't want to recognize it. And it's out there. I mean, it's not going anywhere, but to have a respected and legendary columnist like Mike Ramey take the time out and say, hey, man, here's Harold Bell and Muhammad Ali, you know, and that was, and I appreciate that.
Ramey's a good soldier. He's out there in Indianapolis fighting the good fight with gang violence, working with the youth. So he recognizes.
I think of what happened. We have a lot in common, and you know, and I'm thinking about. I was just talking to Chris about the fake news, and I was just thinking about the piece that was aired on NBC WRC TV4 about a week ago about the uprising in Washington D.C. during the riots. And I looked at that piece, and I recognized. I said, "Man, these people who were reporting the news weren't even here.
They weren't.
Some of them weren't even born.
I was going to say some of them weren't even born, and they certainly weren't in the city.
Yeah, and here they're reporting the news on the rise, and they're dealing with he say, she say from people who claiming they were there and weren't even there. So that's why our history was being oppressed. And one of the people who deserves so much credit is number one, Mayor Walter Washington. He was out there during the riots because Willie Wood and I met with him on the corner of 7th and T because he lived right around the corner, and he was saying that J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, wanted to shoot the looters on sight.
I know.
On site, and he said, he told me and Willie, he said, I can tell you what he said. Oh, I told him not on my watch.
Right.
And man, right there, you could see how much pride that Willie and I had in this brother, man, to stand up like that. Then the other guy was a dear friend of mine and a friend of your mother's.
Yes.
That put me in the middle of the ride with a police badge. I got a call that Harold Tillman O'Brien want to see you down at the 3rd District.
Yep.
I said, I'm going to see what Tillman's talking about. And I went down there, and right in front of his troops, he swore me in, gave me a deputized me, and gave me a badge. I said, that's chief, what's this? He said, Harold, we need you out.
That's it.
We need you out there. I said, without a gun? He said, I can't give you a gun. So he stroked my ego, and I went on out there with that badge for 4 days.
Hey,
right in the middle.
Probably had your chest out too.
I'm telling you, man. And this brother, man, was really ahead of his time. Tell us about Tillman.
Oh, no, he was. He was. I was a kid then, and my mother was a sergeant with the Metropolitan Police Department. And a lot of these guys would come by the house because they would study together and they would try to pass their exams, and they were out working in the community. But Chief O'Brien, he was a stand-up guy. He'd come by the house and he was just out there in the streets, you know. And he was a light-skinned brother too. He could pass sometime, you know.
Yeah, he was like,
good pass, tall. Dashing with the hair, full head of hair. Right. But he was definitely in the streets and doing what he's supposed to do. And I remember one time I was hanging out by Coolidge High School, 5th and Tuckerman. And I should not have been there. It was during school, and he pulled up, and my buddies ran, but they looked, and he said, "Now, come on now." He put me in the car and made it look like he was taking me, you know, to the clink. And all he did was go around the corner and drop me off in school. But man, my street credibility went up the next day. But it didn't go up at home.
Oh, I know it didn't. I know
my mother found out. Yeah. But he was a cool guy.
He was cool, man.
And that's when community-oriented policing worked.
It worked, man.
Because they were out in the community and they cared about you.
I was telling someone that by me working in the U Street corridor, Cardozo Shore, Tillman and I had a lot of contact, and he kind of took me under his wing. And I had a buddy of mine named Andrew Johnson, who I went to school with. We played, we were athletes at Spingarn together, football and basketball. He became a cop, and he was in the area. So he would stop by Harrison Playground and pull up, you know, I go over and talk to him. And so the dudes would look, say, Mr. Bell, what are you doing talking to the cops? I said, man, no, that's my friend. What are you talking about,
That's
man?
right.
Y'all better back up, you know?
Yep.
So, and then Tillman would come out, and he would walk the streets, you know? And we had a great relationship. So when he called me down to the 3rd District, I wasn't surprised, you know? And really, when I stop to think about that man, and I think about this man because I think about Mayor Walter Washington in 1967. He brought Patrick Murphy in and
Oh yeah.
put Patrick Murphy in charge of the police department and the fire department. Patrick Murphy was the former commissioner of police in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick Murphy is the godfather of community relations. One of the first things that Patrick Murphy did when he came in, you know what he did? Say, I want to meet with the roving leaders. Met once a month with us.
See?
And Tillman was there, man.
These guys back then, they walked the talk.
Yeah.
They started the officer friendly program.
That's right. That's right. They were
and they would get into the schools.
That's right.
And so they would take out a lot of the anxiety between the police and the community by being partners and showing you stuff and keeping you out of trouble.
Right. You know, Gary, one of the things that just recently happened too, and they unveiled a statue for Marion Barry down in front of the district building. And Marion Barry and I had we went at it a lot of times, man. But I really love this guy, man.
That was a good looking statue too.
Yeah, man.
I've seen some bad statues.
Yeah,
that was a good statue. It looked like
him. And I'm gonna say, you know, that it was well deserved because Marion could have been one of the greatest black politicians of all time.
In the country.
That's right, in the country. If he had just listened, he just would not listen. He would not listen. But let me tell you one great thing he did while we're talking about police relations. In 1968, after the riots, Murren came up with a program that he wanted the cops and the thugs to play on the same softball team to cement community relations, right?
Okay.
So I had the team at Harrison Playground. So, you know, since I was tight with Tillman and I had my boy Andrew Johnson down at the station, we were able to get some of the white cops to come out, and they would come out and practice, but they wouldn't take the guns off. They wouldn't take the guns off. So I said, Andrew, you got to talk to these guys. They're going to take these guns off, man. And we finally got them to take their guns off, and guess what? Harrison Playground won the citywide softball championship.
Wow.
I got pictures of us with the cops and everything, man. And this was a great program because now my guys got a feel for the cops. You know, they got friends. And guess what? The next year, they abolished the program.
See?
Abolished the program.
This whole thing's about relationships.
Yeah.
And taking the mystery out of, you know, of police officers. They're people too. They want to go home with their families.
That's right. And there's some good officers out there, man. But we get it twisted, man. We really do, because we got to understand the history of police work. And police work go all the way back to the slave days.
Yep.
You understand?
Yep.
Where those guys like Ku Klux Klanners had dogs and whips that chased down runaway slaves.
Yep.
That was the original cop.
Knowing our history is so important.
So important. So important. But that is what's happening, man. And Gary, when I look around and I see what's happening, man, of course, you know, I'm a pioneer. Ain't no doubt about that. Now, when it comes to trailblazing, I've done that. But in order to be a pioneer and a trailblazer, you got to take risks. If you're going to be first, you got to take risks, man, if you're going to help other people.
You can't be afraid. You got to take risks, and you have to be comfortable with conflict.
That's right.
And you have all three of those components.
Yeah. And the thing
on the fourth one, you can't care about what people say.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. It's no doubt. You cannot care about what people say about it. But the one ingredient that is missing when it comes to our community leaders and when it comes to the criminal justice system, we lack courage, Gary. We lack courage, man.
Oh, courage. I define courage as the willingness to act on what you believe to be true. Mm-hmm. You are so right.
Yeah, we lack courage.
We got a lot of people who are weak-kneed, gutless, and spineless.
Yeah.
Trying to be leaders.
And do you notice, Gary, that they run from the truth?
Yeah.
They say the truth will set you free.
Right.
These folks don't want to be free.
They don't even want to be touched with it.
They don't want to be touched with the truth, you know?
No.
I think about, with all my success in the community and sports media, man, I think about some of the personalities that are on the scene today, Gary, and I get a lot of flack because I call it like a sin. because my relationship has been up close and personal.
Right.
Not he say, she say. And you had a chance to read everything that comes to black men in America, so you know the stories. I don't have to tell you the stories. You know the stories.
I see some of your fan mail. I'm like, whoa, okay. Touched the nerve on that one.
Yeah, but you know, it's been very satisfying. It hasn't been financial rewarding, but the spiritual rewards are unlimited. When you talk about Sugar Ray Leonard, talk about the success of Sugar Ray Leonard, Harold Bell has to be mentioned. When you talk about the success of John Thompson, Harold Bell has to be mentioned.
Yeah.
When you talk about the success of Kathy Hughes, Harold Bell has to be mentioned. When you talk about the success of James Brown, Harold Bell has to be mentioned.
JB, the sportscaster.
The sportscaster. You talk about the success of Kathy Hughes, Harold Bell has to be mentioned. So, you know, that's why I'm comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in my skin, and though I took a chance in reaching back before these folks, 15 minutes of fame, to include Doug Williams, who became the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, came through Harold Bell when he came to Washington. So yes, I've had an impact, and it's out there now. It's not going anywhere.
No, it's there.
Technology, man.
It's there, and you know, you can be comfortable knowing that you make a difference still, but the legacy is just all over. I mean, I go places and people will say something like, Harold Bell. Is that the same Harold Bell used to have a radio station? I said, the one and only. The one and only. Still there.
Yeah, man. Well, man, you know, it's so important that we have these outlets like blackmeninamerica.com. Is Tom Joyner still doing his thing?
He's associated more with Black America Web, which is I guess part of Urban One now.
Okay.
It used to be Radio One, now it's Urban One.
Oh, it's Urban One now.
Yeah,
okay.
So they've upgraded now, so it's Urban One, and they're a big conglomerate, but they have a lot of I'd say media. I think Comcast and maybe NBC Universal are partners with them. But we just put an article about Essence. Essence is trying to get back to being black owned.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's a component or a black group that is either just did to take Essence Communication away from Time Warner and to come back. So maybe, you know, some people slow to the party, but maybe seeing there's some advantages to owning your own media. At least I can say that. I mean, people sometimes, I turn down a lot of stuff, especially in the music business, or people will call and I just say, I'm not interested in that.
Right.
You know, there's enough other outlets that'll do something with R. Kelly.
Yeah.
I could care less. I'm not doing anything on R. Kelly. And they say, why not? I say, because I don't have to. I don't want to. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't represent the what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. You know, when we think about black media and how important it is to our young people to know our history, that is the important role right there of blackmeninamerica.com or whatever Tom Joyner is. I remember when Tom Joyner, because the show was a demotion where he is now with Radio One.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, of course,
the fly job.
Yeah, he was a fly job. And I remember one morning, man, a friend of mine, I got to give her the credit for this, Jackie Jones, had Tom Joyner mention Harold Bell as a little known Black History Fact.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right. On the radio, man.
That's when he was on FM.
That's right.
Now here in DC, I think they relegated him to AM.
Yeah, he's on the AM.
But he may be on 95 something.
Yeah.
He did get kind of a kick down.
Yeah, that was a kick down, and it was too bad because Tom, he's still probably making a difference. But when you're on FM and you got that type of audience, you know, you don't give that up.
Yeah, and I want to try to be fair and balanced. Tom is probably unprecedented in what he's done for historically black colleges and universities.
Oh, no doubt about that.
I don't know of anyone who's done more and raised more money for HBCUs than the Tom Joyner Foundation with his two sons.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I agree with you, man. He's kept some schools open.
Yes.
He's kept some schools open.
Yeah.
Because believe me, brother, they're trying to close a lot of them.
Some of the small colleges, you're right. If it wasn't for the Joyner Foundation, you're probably right. Their doors would be closed.
Well, the big picture, Gary, when it comes to media, where are we, man?
Wow. You know, it's even hard to say with this president we have.
Right.
But not even giving him any shine, this guy who's just lowered the office. I just think for us, we just got to continue to be vigilant and be honest about ourselves and leverage what we can to put our voices and our opinions out there. We've got some brilliant voices and opinions that we just need to keep putting them out there. So on my site, you can write into anybody on blackmeninamerica.com, and if you've got idea for an article, if you want to write an article, unless it's patently profane, you can get a voice. You can be out there. I can tell you the number of people who've been launched. LaDawn Black has a radio show. She's a best-selling author. Jessica Tillis, right? She's done stuff. Vanessa Wirtz, Mike Ramey. I mean, just a lot of people. I got an idea from a lady who came about. She said, "You ought to interview my brother." I said, "Well, who's your brother?" He said, "His name is Will Cooksey." I looked him up. This man was running Corvette USA and Cadillac. Wow. A black man. Wow. So that's the kind of stories we get. And I called him. He gave me an exclusive interview. Wow. All these white boys driving these Corvettes. I'm sure that a lot of them didn't know that a brother was running that company. You know, so I get these great ideas. So I want them to keep coming. Yeah. And that's what, you know, we want to feature extraordinary men and women on the site. Yeah, that's fantastic, man. And my thing is to keep encouraging our young people, man. Oh yeah. And when young people approach me about, I just had a friend of mine in Atlanta, Georgia, refer a young lady to me who was interested in sports journalists. Yep. And he wanted me to talk to her. I said, you know, John, come on, just tell her to call me. So we did talk, and I told her, like I tell all these young African American men and women, this technology is where you need to go. Man. Don't worry about CBS, ABC. This technology can take you wherever you want to go if you are creative. I'm way behind. I don't know. This is so easy to me right here, and I know there's more to it than what I'm doing sitting down here. This thing right here. You get one of these for a young person. This is their whole studio. Yeah, whole studio. They can do a studio right there in the palm of their hand.
Well, man, we run out of time, Garrett, and as always, man, it's always a pleasure, and I'm so proud to know you and be a part of Black Men in America. And
I appreciate what you do for the community, for my son and my friends. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, hey, man, this was what I was born to do, man, because I have to give all the credit, man, to my heroes who were black women. You know, my heroes were black women. And they couldn't shoot a jump shot, hit a ball out of the stadium. But, man, they were superstars in the game called life.
They could develop you and your character.
That's right. And the game called life is the most important game being played in the world today.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see if I can get us out of here.
All right.
Well, anyway, Gary, thanks so much. And wish you nothing but the best in your endeavors. And I just want to say that this has been the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. And I want you to remember that every black face you see is not your brother. And every white face is not your enemy. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell. And you can color me gone, but you can catch me on Black Men in America and the original Inside Sports. Have a great day.